don't they look? Why don't they look? Hello and welcome to the hard sell, where the stick in the swill-bucket rattles back. Today's episode is a Not Brand X. This is where we look at single brands, or single campaigns, and this time it's the latter. And once again it's back to the black and white nicotine-stained world of Madison Avenue, as we look at an American campaign from the mid-60s. Here's what Mobil Oil's advertising looked like at the outset of that decade.
When you buy gasoline, don't make the octane mistake. Let the Mobil living engine show you a better way to buy gasoline. You see your motor from the outside. Your gasoline sees it from the inside. Octane ratings measure only 2 of your motor's needs. But now comes Mobil with the Megatane rating system, which measures 21 of your motor's needs. Not just octane, but 21 of your motor's needs. While no gasoline has a perfect Megatane rating of 21, Mobil Premium at 19 rates highest. Mobil Regular with 16 rates higher than any leading regular gasoline. And we say the higher the Megatane rating, the better your motor will run. You probably won't notice the difference at first, but your car will run stronger, keep younger, last longer with Mobil. 5, 10, 20,000 miles from now, your motor will know the difference when it's Mobil. Visit your Mobil dealer. Get details of the Megatane system.
Pretty standard stuff for the time. Very earnest, very technical. The only real flourish being the scary voice diagnosing the mundane engine problem so as to motivate you to do something about it, followed by insistent staccato bellowing so you know that that something is by Mobil. And here's an example from the other end of the decade.
With a rock around assembly, assembly, assembly. With a rock around assembly, we don't like dirt. But detergent gasoline helps keep our engine running smooth and clean. Sure, it's Mobil, oh, it's Mobil gasoline. With the rock around assembly, assembly.
Use Mobil detergent gasoline. It can help your car's performance.
Again, a pretty straightforward advert, with cutesy anthropomorphic characters doing a little song and dance about how great the brand they're shilling is. You see it all the time. Admittedly, fruit and veg and even cigarettes lend themselves better to anthropomorphization than the random components of an internal combustion engine, but on the whole it works perfectly well. And now, here is a Mobil advert from 1966.
I'm going driving with my baby. I'm gonna love her till I die. I'm going driving with my baby. We're gonna fly. We're gonna watch that odometer spin right up to the sky. I'm going driving with my baby. We're gonna fly. She's gonna move right up to me and make me feel like a great big guy. I'm going driving with my baby. We're gonna fly. And if we die together, so don't nobody cry. I'm gonna love, 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 love her until I die.
We at Mobil sell gasoline and oil. We are in favor of driving and in favor of love, but not at the same time. We want you to live.
Bit of a contrast, isn't it? Almost a public information film. So what happened in between the lecture and the musical number to make them change course and then change back? Well, it's a trick question to an extent, because the campaign we're looking at today was a special campaign, being run separately from their main advertising by a separate ad company to their usual one. And that company happened to be one of the biggest in the world, then and now, DDB, then still modestly known in full as Doyle, Dane and Bernbach, because those three men still worked there. They became the biggest name in advertising right at the turn of the 60s, when they were given the daunting task of making Volkswagens popular, despite the PR drawback of their signature car being a ridiculous-looking midget built in a former Nazi facility. Their solution confused the hell out of pretty much everyone, but particularly their Madison Avenue colleagues and rivals.
You see this yet?
I have.
I don't know what I hate about it the most, the ad or the car.
You know, they did one last year, same kind of smirk. Remember Think Small? It was a half-page ad and a full-page buy. You could barely see the product.
Honesty. It's a great angle.
No chrome, no horsepower, foreign, ugly. Guess I went with their strengths.
It is funny.
It is?
Because I think the joke's on us. You're supposed to look at that and say it's a great car, not a great ad.
I laughed. I think it's brilliant.
Unpleasantly enough, Pete Campbell is right, despite being a shaved polecat who leaves a trail of slime wherever he treads, only some of which is Brill cream. The Think Small and Lemon adverts broke all the rules, and thereby got laughed out of Madison Avenue, until it became clear they'd actually found a new formula that worked even better, and therefore rendered those rules redundant. Terse, snappy copy full of widows and orphans, the better to keep the reader rolling along. Sans serif fonts at a time when those were considered strictly childish. Full stops at the end of headlines yet. Use of negative space and carefully arranged eye catchers like the very deliberately placed bug in the Think Small ad. And an overall sense of low-key informality and everyday realism, at a time when adverts bellowed urgently like Elijah to Ahab.
Don't make the octane mistake.
Despite what the denizens of Sterling Cooper might have thought, it turned out to be one of the most seminal advertising campaigns in history, changing the form forever. Adverts, it turned out, could be subtle and insinuating, rather than just noisy and hectoring. Conversational, rather than didactic. The form of VW adverts in particular was set for decades to come. I told you that story, so I could tell you this one. In 1964, DDB won a contract with Mobil. Not the main ongoing one to promote their filling stations and petrol and their actual products and what have you, but a special one to devise a campaign celebrating the company's centenary. They already had a logo, something new and fresh to replace the old red Pegasus, with a centenary variation which looked something like this. They showed it to the DDB creatives, and Bill Bernbach said simply and immediately, "It looks like it just died," which was obviously quite deflating. But the contract had been signed, the new logo was already in effect. DDB had to produce something to at least softly relaunch Mobil in the public consciousness, without actually going into detail on their products and thereby treading on the other agency's toes. So they cast around for inspiration. But they didn't have to cast far, because cars were already lurking in the collective mind of 1965 America, thanks largely to future not President Ralph Nader and his book Unsafe at Any Speed, which systematically went through everything dangerous about cars and the automobile industry, from their contribution to pollution, to the emphasis on comfort and tinsel over basic safety, to the fact that things like seat belts and the then newfangled technology of roll cages were being deliberately held back by manufacturers to save money. It was a massive bestseller and ensured that 1966 began, in America at least, with road safety on everyone's mind. There wasn't a United States Department of Transportation before this book, you know. It was perfect timing for DDB. That was the angle they go down with Mobil, they decided. Everyone's concerned about car-related safety, so we'll let them know that this petrol company shares those concerns. Essentially, we'll make some public safety announcements and add a brand name at the end. Do the ad councils work for them? No one's ever done that before. No, at that point they hadn't. That was why We Want You to Live was as groundbreaking as Think Small had been 7 years earlier. The print ads took a similar format to those, which wasn't surprising, since it was by now the standard. Big dominating image, droll but eye-catching headline in sentence case, 3 flowing columns of copy. It was the nature of the dominating image that set this campaign apart. Rather than straightforward images of the car they're trying to sell, occasionally arranged into visual haikus, the subject matter here often necessitated rather more arresting visuals. Crashed cars, splayed corpses, and this startling shot. Imagine being the photographer for this one and getting the timing slightly wrong. That one ties in with the campaign's main television spot.
This demonstration is being brought to you by Mobil. We are going to put a car on the roof of a 10-story building and then push it off to make a simple point. If you drive at 60 miles an hour and hit something, it's exactly the same as driving off a 10-story building. And it will get you to exactly the same place. The morgue.
This was made in LA on the grounds that they were used to people doing stupid and destructive things in front of cameras. Also, the city happened to have the perfect building, 10 stories exactly, with a flat roof. The owners charged them $4,000, plus however much it would cost to fill in the inevitable crater. Now, it was important for the advert's visual impact that the car landed nose first. So the agency of filmmakers hired half of UCLA to do a bunch of calculations in order to make sure it did. They flew the car up to the roof via a helicopter airplane, dropped it on a cantilever, and the epoxy thing fell on its roof. They'd taken out the engine so that it wouldn't sort of explode and kill everyone, which was laudable and all, but it threw out the UCLA nerds' calculations. Fortunately, they'd been supplied with 3 cars to kill, just in case they fucked up with one of them. So up went another one, and this time they replaced the engine with something of equal weight but little to no explosive potential, and it successfully landed very dramatically flat on its car face. Nicely done. They then came to the conclusion that this was really fun and flung the third car off the roof just for the hell of it.
When you drive fast, remember, this is how it is, but it doesn't have to be. At 60 miles an hour, you need 366 feet to stop. If you leave 366 feet, you make it. If you don't, you don't. We at Mobil hope you'll remember that fact. Our business is to sell you gasoline and oil, and we want you to be around to try them. We want you to live.
That's the second most famous advert from this campaign. The most famous advert, and look away now if you're of a nervous disposition, is this one. I mean this one. A stark and genuinely unsettling warning about not driving angry, and a result of what I imagine to be 1 or 2 happy accidents. The man in the picture is actually none other than Frank Killer Joe Piero, dance instructor to the stars, pioneer of the discotheque, and at least partial inspiration for Tony Manero. Here he looks more like a potential inspiration for the son of Sam. But why Killer Joe anyway? It's a bit of a random choice, isn't it? Well, the picture wasn't originally taken for Mobil. It was actually taken by the even more legendary society photographer Richard Avedon, in mid-step in an apparent attempt to capture Killer Joe's almost inexhaustible energy. Here's the original version. Much more benevolent. Exactly what Avedon and Killer Joe intended it to be, an expression of pure exuberance. Now, the following narrative is pure speculation, but I reckon somehow this picture got into the hands of someone at DDB and a light bulb went off over their head. But this is the US advertising industry in the 60s, so let's face it, his head. Anyway, that person secured the rights to use it, and then, 25 years before Photoshop mind, raised the contrast to very near pure blacks and whites, cropped it tightly so the sense of motion was replaced by one of claustrophobia, and pasted a pair of white-knuckled hands clutching a steering wheel in front of it. A nation was put off sleeping for life. And probably put off chirping tents as well. Another notable one is this. They use children's illustrations a few times, but this, "You drive like the man you are," is particularly notable. Not just for the casual sexism, in case you'd forgotten it was 1966, but because this was very much the second choice headline. The original version was a little blunter. Mobil actually gave this version the go-ahead at first, and then they chickened out right at the last minute. Shame, really. Everybody at the agency preferred the bastards version, and one suspects so did Mobil. They just lost their nerve. They did, however, approve this one. Let's hope no little kids accidentally caught sight of it trying to find the funny pages. The We Want You to Live campaign proved ludicrously successful at its main task, getting through to the public. Mobil had to hire 8 new secretaries to cover all the fan mail they were getting for it, 10,000 in the first week alone. Many included torn-up credit cards from rival companies, accompanied by notes to the effect that their owners were going to replace them with Mobil ones. Or plaintive requests, per se. There were articles about the campaign running in Life magazine right next to the adverts themselves. Mobil were being congratulated left, right and centre for caring so much about public welfare. Which is incredible, really, considering the real genius move of this campaign. They never concealed their true motivations. Even down to the slogan. The voiceover on the advert said it directly and explicitly.
Our business is to sell you gasoline and oil, and we want you to be around to try them. We want you to live.
They don't care about public welfare, and aren't going to pretend that they do, except in as much as it affects their profits. Their sole concern is to get paid by you. They want you to live because dead people don't spend money. Maybe it's because this was the first example of its genre, a supposedly public welfare concerned advertising campaign for an actual brand, that they could get away with saying the quiet part out loud in this way. Later examples, and there've been a lot, have tended to be a bit more sincerely caring in a way that's not sincere at all. And of course in these days of social media and, I don't want to say it but I have to, wokeness, is a standard technique. Companies like Gillette make short films rather than adverts all about social mores, with their products and logos discreetly front and centre, just as if they're not trying to sell these things to you and that seeming to give a shit about an actual issue is just the latest technique for doing so, in the same way that using sans serif fonts was in 1959. The bright side to all this cynicism is that by its very nature, this does force these companies to actually get off their arses and do shit once in a while to demonstrate their actual sincerity. Like Tommy Hilfiger actually funding some social educational courses, or Brewdog planting a forest, or ExxonMobil. Well, their sustainability report for 3 years ago has a smiling ethnic person who runs for calm blue ocean. So there's that. You've been watching a Bob the Fish production. Thanks! If you haven't found it already, be sure to check out our website at bobthefish.org.uk. Literally hundreds of videos not unlike this one that will make you laugh, think and realise new things or your money back. Which works out great because they're all absolutely free. All of this is possible thanks to the not unique way that Bob the Fish productions are paid for by you, the viewing public, via Patreon. For a donation of as little as £1 a month, not only do you ensure that I still have food and shelter so I can carry on making these programmes, but you could become eligible for a whole host of cool extras. New video essays, special event live streams, all my content a week in advance, and my book on the history of the BBC, Rule the Waves, chapter by chapter as it's written. And some cake, if you go out and buy a cake and eat it while you're watching. And if you don't want to support on a monthly basis, you can make a one-off donation via coffee. It all helps stave off scurvy. bobthefish.org.uk. You make it what it is.